Check. Check, check, 1, 2. Cameron projects pretty loud, so. Well, I mean, like, we just want to find the sweet spot, I guess.
Here's this one, so they
For
need
that-
three
that-
mics? Oh,
yeah.
they don't need two up here?
No, there's a podium that goes here.
Okay.
We usually have been using a boom stand next to it.
With a third? Okay.
Is it the acrylic podium?
Perfect.
The acrylic one, yeah.
Here?
Facing, yeah, in the middle.
Spray paint. Let me go check the notes for if they see what mics they're using.
Check, check, check. Oh, right, that. Probably. Yeah, make sure the event crew is ready to help with that flip. You don't have to do it by yourself.
Okay.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing.
Pretty all right.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. working? Aaron? All good.
Check, 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 check.
The Senate will now come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will now be led by Chief of Staff Tax, followed by a moment of silence and reflection.
If willing and able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. You may be seated.
The clerk will now call the roll. Please correct the pronunciation of your name if it is incorrect.
Baber, Barnes, Barr, Bean, Bracy, Brash, Byer, Calder, Cost, Creed, Durham, Felix, Galavati, Goldstein, Bruner, Haber, Hamilton, Harvey, Hensley, Hurd, Howe, John, Kay, Kwame, LaPinta, Lapsley, Lynn, Malachi, Miller, Montalto, Morgan, Peterson, Rongavajula, Ravi, Sane, Sellers, Spittler, Tanner, Vaught, Wall, Wenzel, Whitehead.
With a quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the Journal of February 7th, 2024 as found online? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in line for general orders of the Senate, beginning with reports from Senate leadership. Is there anyone willing to speak on behalf of the Rules Committee? Chairwoman Ravi, you are recognized.
Hi guys. So Ava couldn't be here today, so she asked me to give our rules report. So we met on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Due to the Super Bowl, we did not meet at our normal time. We reviewed 4 pieces of legislation, and 3 of them went to the floor, not through the floor. That'd be kind of crazy. But yeah, with that, I yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now hear a report from the Academics Committee. Chairwoman Creed, you are recognized, and LaPinta, you're recognized to give a report on her behalf.
Hey guys, happy Valentine's Day. Academics did not meet this week, but we are continuing to work on our individual projects. I am currently working on implementing my fee legislation through conversation with Speaker Eubanks and other contacts. Senator Sellers met with Bill Brown, the coordinator of transfer advising, about our plans to attend the Transfer Student Advisory Council on February 26th. He and Bill are also trying to establish permanent relations between the council and the Senate by having 2 permanent senators as non-voting permanent members. After the election, the Academics Committee will do their best to find 2 transfers that will be serving again and willing to be in this role for the next year and introduce them to Bill before the term ends. All of the questions about that also will be answered when Senator Sellers presents his legislation tonight. With that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Excuse me, is there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Finance Committee. Is there anyone willing to give a report Excuse me, Chairwoman Durham, you are recognized. So sorry.
All right, hi everyone. The Finance Committee did not meet this Friday because we've allocated all the requests that are currently at our stage. However, I'm meeting with members of the Sustainability Committee and Matt Hines on Friday to talk about possible initiatives that we can take for on-campus green certification awareness. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Health and Safety Committee. Chairwoman Ravi, you are once again recognized.
Really loving this recognition. Anyways, big week for health and safety. As you guys all know, we concluded our menstrual product drive. Some stats, we raised 1,048 pads and 1,064 tampons, so that's a lot. We will be doing our period packing party with no periods left behind, just coordinating the logistics on that. Thrsha was thinking about doing this Sunday at 11, and we're opening the event to anybody in Senate, and gauging on the number of people that say yes. I will send her something that says yes, we're open. So please sign up for that. I'll probably send a form out. And then we also had the Pie a Senator initiative, and we pied, well, our senators got pied 40 times. Big shout out to Senator Lapsley, who took probably at least 25 of the 40 pies to the face. And then I'd also like to shout out the Zeta Tau Alpha sorority, as well as the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity for donating a large volume of products to the menstrual product drive. It was a great success. Health and Safety probably has one more initiative in their back pocket for you guys coming soon, and we should have legislation in by Sunday regarding Carolina card and like putting the Save It number on the Carolina card. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And with that, I yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Is there anyone willing to give a report on her behalf? Seeing none, we'll now hear a report from the Judiciary Committee. Chairwoman Hamilton, you are recognized, ma'am.
Hi everybody, happy Valentine's Day. I hope you are having a great week. We did end up changing our meeting time, so our new meeting time will now be at 12:15 on Fridays instead of 1 p.m. It will still be in the LSC. We nominated and elected a new chairman, so congratulations to Vice Chairman Cam DeKay. And then our wonderful Speaker Pro Tempore, Ava Baber, is working on some legislation regarding the increase of executive stipends. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now hear a report from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Chairman Harvey, is there anyone willing to give a report? Senator Lapsley, you are recognized, sir.
Good afternoon. Hello, Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Powers and Responsibility met Tuesday at 6:30. During that time, we found SBL 115 favorable, as well as we went ahead and elected our new vice chair, who we found unanimously 4-0 for Haley Harbor as our new vice chair. And upon that, I yield the question.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Senator Kay.
SBL, I believe 115, 61. Yeah.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now hear a report from the Student Life Committee. Chairwoman Malachi, you are recognized. Excuse me, Senator Ravi, or Chairwoman Ravi. So point of information, the calendar will always be in the calendar folder. I usually try to send it out in an email as a courtesy, but I did not have time to do that today. But it will always be in the folder before the email. So, yeah. If you can't find it, just re-raise your point of information. Chairwoman Malachi, you are recognized.
Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. So we met Monday at 6 p.m. like usual. We found SBL 11555 unanimously favorable.
we have some new legislation coming out tonight from Senator Barnes. It'll be on the first reading calendar about a possible whiteout game. And then we just want to thank everyone formally for the Table of Love. It was a huge success today. I appreciate everyone's help and just coming out and giving your time. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? And point of information, we did give out all the cupcakes, and there were a lot of them, so big success. Thank you so much. We now hear a report from the Sustainability Committee. Chairman Hensley, you are recognized, sir.
Hey y'all, Sustainability did not meet on Monday as we were not going to meet quorum. However, we did pass 4 bills virtually, 3 from Senator Rongvajula and the other one from both Senator Rongvajula and Senator LaPinta. And y'all see those on the floor today. And we are meeting with Chairwoman Durham and advisors on Friday to continue to work on our initiatives together. I yield to questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now hear a report from Freshman Council. Are there any representatives from the Freshman Council present? You guys are recognized to give a report before the body.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Branyan. I'm a member of the Academic Committee on Freshman Council, and today I am thrilled to share with y'all some of the initiatives that Freshman Council is currently working on. To start, the Academic Committee is analyzing the data we collected at our Hot Drinks for Hot Takes tabling event, an event that was designed to give students the opportunity to vocalize change they want to see in academics here at USC. We have heard concerns relating to professor accessibility, internet issues while taking exams, and the timeliness of the release of syllabi. This coincides perfectly with our overall initiative to push for professors to release syllabi earlier so students may feel more prepared before starting their classes. In addition to this, I wanted to discuss a little bit about our other committees, what our other committees are tackling. I am proud to announce the success of the Hollings Library event put on by the DEI Committee, an amazing presentation about the marginalized communities in historic South Carolina, and an excellent opportunity for freshmen to build connections with their student government. The Community Outreach Committee is currently working on a poverty simulation that our freshman council will partake in. This will be an amazing and eye-opening exposure to a low-income household in America and will be used as a tool to motivate service and charity among freshmen. Similarly, they are also planning to host a food drive and a service day for all freshmen to donate canned goods and give support to Harvest Hope Food Bank. The Health and Safety Committee is working on getting in contact with USCPD to organize a tabling event in mid-March where they will give out cup condoms and rape whistles to freshmen to emphasize the importance of protection when either enjoying a night out or simply walking on campus at night. The Sustainability Committee is working with the Alpha Delta Pi chapter to organize a Pop Tab drive for the Ronald McDonald House to raise funds for family and children-centered programs. They are also planning to host a cooking class partnering with Sustainable Carolina at the end of March to showcase how to cook in a sustainable and healthy manner. Finally, the Student Life Committee is coordinating a tabling event where they will hand out Celsius drinks and affirmations on Davis Field. This event will be held on February 21st. Thank you, and with that, I yield my time to questions.
The representative yields to questions. Are there any questions for the representative? Seeing none, let's give her a big round of applause. Thank you so much for coming in and giving a report before the body. We'll now hear a report from the Constitutional Council. Chief Justice Buchmeyer, you're recognized. Seeing none, we'll now hear a report from the Speaker of the Student Senate, Cameron Eubanks. Chief of Staff Tax, you are recognized.
Hey y'all, happy Valentine's Day. So I do have a little bit of a long report, so I'm so sorry in advance. So first, a memo is going to be read today. We are requesting funds, approximately $68.75, plus or minus a couple dollars from taxes, from the IMF fund or the Internal Monetary Fund. This money is going to cater one medium chicken nugget tray from Chick-fil-A for the Senate legislative event per code section 3220. It will fall under the IMF because it does not serve the entire student body, and this event is occurring after the budget was approved. So if you have any questions, please let us know. Number two, the legislative workshop will be tomorrow. We are very, very excited about this. It'll be from 6:30 to 7:30 in Russell House 322, so the old Senate chambers upstairs. Chick-fil-A will be provided. This is a great way to work on any legislation that you want one-on-one with Emily and Hannah. And then Emily and Hannah will also decide who wrote the best piece of legislation, and you will get to dress down for the rest of the semester, except for the last Senate session. Thank you to the 3 people that RSVP'd, Senator Sellers, Senator Creed, and Senator LaPinta. You guys get a free dress down day for next week. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Dania and Kaylin and the Student Life Committee for Table of Love event, and to Sreshta and the Health and Safety Committee for the Menstrual Product Drive and Pious Senator. We are very, very proud of you and all of the work that you guys have put into that. And then just a reminder that hard campaigning will begin after the debate today, and the theater during Senate and the LSC will be no campaign zones, so make sure you're not discussing your campaign if you're rerunning during Senate or anywhere that you may think you shouldn't be discussing it. Also, just a reminder that if you are running for re-election, you are still senators of the 115th Student Senate, so make sure you're still working towards your initiatives and legislation for this term. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The Chief of Staff yields to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief of Staff? Seeing none, and point of information, hard campaigning does now include merchandise from any and all campaigns. So just a reminder, that also counts in the no campaign zones. You're not allowed to wear merch from any campaign in the LLC or the theater during Senate, because obviously you're a business professional and you look amazing. But just as a reminder, that also applies to that. And the legislative event / workshop tomorrow is going to be really, really, really fun. We solidified the plans earlier today. Obviously, we tried the RSVP format. That's okay. So now you can just come, and there'll be free food. And also, who doesn't want to win a dress down pass that's like pretty definite for the entire rest of the semester, right? So it'll be a really, really cool competition, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So you should come. Any other questions for the Chief of Staff? Saying none, thank you so much. We are now in line for a report from the Student Body Treasurer. Treasurer Oxbach Lama, you are recognized, ma'am.
Hi everyone, no real updates for me this week. You'll see the thing that's going to be asked you about the IMF. I'm in full support of that, but other than that, I don't have any report. I yield to questions.
The Treasurer yields to questions. Are there any questions for the Treasurer? Seeing none, thank you so much. We are now in line for a report from the Student Body Vice President. Vice President Reeves, you are recognized, ma'am.
Happy Valentine's Day for like the 6th time tonight, but nothing much from me today except we are kind of working on that annual report similar to the one last year, but a digital version. So if, especially from the events that y'all have been hosting recently, if you could upload those pictures to the photo circle, that would be great so we can include those. But besides that, there's an episode of Inside 1801 podcast with Emmy coming out this Friday, so that was exciting. But with that, I yield the questions.
Point of information, I am so excited about this new episode of Inside 1801, and I will be tuning in, so should you. Any questions for the Student Body Vice President? Chairwoman Hamilton. Is that a question to the Vice President?
To me, it was really fun to record, and I was there, so y'all should be really excited to listen to it.
Point of information, that means very excited.
Super duper.
Any other questions for the Vice President? Seeing none, thank you so much. We are now in line for a report from the Student Body President. President Thompson, you are recognized, ma'am.
Hey y'all. So first of all, thank you all so much for your help with Hoops Week last week. Huge shout out to Pat and Arliss and all of my staff for coordinating almost all of that. We went through 30 dozen donuts and 30 pizzas, and we reached 401 students on Uber. So that was super exciting from student government's contributions. Another huge thank you for Carolina Day. It was a huge success yesterday, so thank you for your presence. Thank you for your gratitude. I was able to go around with President Amaritas and the board chair to the different caucuses and several different legislators' offices and while it wasn't a day of lobbying, it was really great to be able to share the student experience firsthand and back the needs about housing and infrastructure that the president was discussing. Also, staff is working on organization visits for after elections to encourage students to apply for student government. We want to make sure our organization represents all aspects of our student body and is encouraging leaders in other parts of campus to serve as well. Also from staff, we'll have a design for t-shirts within the next week, so keep an eye out in the GroupMe for that. There'll be a form asking for your sizes, and if enough students order them, they will be free for student government members. And it's going to be a Comfort Colors front pocket t-shirt, so the best kind. St. Patrick's Day, we're going to be offering another Uber discount, so keep an eye out for more information on that. And on the Uber note, I'm so excited because we're having Uber discounts for all of our home football games next year. That's going to be a permanent initiative. So I'm really happy about that because that came into fruition during campaign last year, and it's been cool to see that kind of blossom throughout the year. In terms of cabinet, yesterday we worked on Carolina Core redundancy, comparing college requirements and Carolina Core requirements and seeing where there's overlaps. And then we've also been planning the SG Awards banquet for March 14th, so make sure you have that on your calendar. And then we've also been working with athletics on their Football Student Experience Improvement Forum on March 12th, so would love for y'all to be in attendance at that as well. And then on the note of election season, please reach out to Election Commission if you have any questions. Of course, I'm always happy to talk about things, but they are your go-to during this season. And please encourage students to vote next week. Just because we have less candidates running, we don't want to see numbers get any lower. Make sure our engagement is still high with the student body, and just continue to serve throughout the rest of your term. And with that, I'll yield to questions.
The student body president yields to questions. Are there any questions for the president? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
We are now in line for special orders of the Senate. Are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
A communication from the Office of the Student Body President and Speaker of the Student Senate concerning the nomination of Maddie Moore, Alexa Souza, and Emma Creed to sit on the 2024 Richard Rempel Award Committee.
Point of information, this committee happens every year towards the end of the student government term. This committee decides on a faculty member or a staff member, and also can be a student in some cases, that has shown an extreme concern for the well-being of the student population, and has shown kind of the legacy of Professor Rempel, Richard Rempel. And so this committee, per the codes, houses the Academics Committee chairperson of the Student Senate, and then 2 at-large members of student government appointed by the Student Body President's Office. And then it does also include our Student Government Advisor on said committee as an ex officio non-voting member. And the committee also determines like the nomination status of the candidates for the award, and they also vote on who the award is given to. The award is kept in secret until University Awards Day, and I believe that is in April. And so at Awards Day, the Student Body President will essentially issue the 2024 Richard Rempel Award to the candidate. And yeah, so with that, of course, excuse me, spoke too soon. Point of information as well, Student Senate has to approve the nominees on the committee. So that's what this memo does. The question is of approval of the 2024 Richard Rempel Award Committee assignments. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The committee assignments are approved. Continuing on with special orders of the Senate.
A communication from the Office of the Speaker of the Student Senate concerning the request for withdrawal of funds from the Internal Monetary Fund.
And point of information, the Internal Monetary Fund is essentially referred to as the IMF, and is to be used according to Section 3230 of the codes for new events, programs, or initiatives created by student government following the student government budget passage by the Student Senate. So if you remember, we passed, one of the very first things we did as a body was pass our student government internal budget. And so the IMF is about $4,500 set aside for events or programs or initiatives that maybe not serves the entire student population and is maybe more internal and also is past the passage date of the budget. According to the codes, like I said, the IMF is usually used for overages on any event, program, or initiative line item in the student government budget, Following a majority vote of senators in office, the request to withdraw funds from the IMF must be submitted to the Student Senate in a form of a memo by any executive officer or Chief Justice of the Constitutional Council. The memo must include a description of the necessity for the funding and a budget of the expenses being requested for. And Chief of Staff Tax explained that in her report. It's also in the memo itself. The funds directly allocated to the IMF shall never exceed 10% of the total student government budget. And all unspent monies following the conclusion of an event, program, or initiative must be placed back into the IMF. So yeah. And last thing with the IMF, again, the memo has to be voted on by a majority of senators in the term that it is requested for. So that is what we are about to do. The question is of approval of the withdrawal of funds of the Internal Monetary Fund for the Student Senate's legislative workshop. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The withdrawal from the IMF is approved. Continuing on with special orders of the Senate, the clerk will now read. Hearing no more special orders of the Senate, we are now in line for the motion period. And point of information, this is a time where you can add yourself or remove yourself from any committee of your choosing. And with that being said, are there any motions on the floor? Seeing no more motions, is there a motion to dispense with the motion period? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now on the call of the introduction of new legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11562, introduced by Senator Lynn, a bill to specify the notice and enforcement of absence policy.
Senator Lynn, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Everyone. So this is essentially the same bill that we've talked about a few weeks back. Everything has stayed the same except for the removal of the clause that specified the mandatory voting of removal for a senator can be waived off via supermajority. That was taken out after senatorial feedback, and everything else is the same. So if this bill were to pass and a senator violates the attendance policy, they will be called onto the table or onto the floor to be voted off until their removal. Any questions? Or I yield the floor to questions.
Senator Lynn yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator?
Thank you.
Saying none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Judiciary Committee. Continuing on the introduction of new legislation.
SBL 11563, introduced by Senator Barnes, a recommendation to host a whiteout-themed game during the 2024 football season.
Senator Barnes, you're recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hey everyone. This is a pretty simple piece of legislation that's asking the university to host a whiteout game during the 2024 football season. Our last official one was in 2017 against Kentucky, and considering the difficulty of our upcoming schedule, I feel this could be a pretty good idea to implement to engage with the student body, improve school spirit and attendance rates to the games. Many other schools do this tradition yearly and have seen great results, so I think this could be a great opportunity for our university. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Senator Calder.
Yes, I have. I've been working with some members of cabinet, and we've reached out to Justin King along with Joe Auclair, and they seem to be on board with it. We're meeting with them later this week to kind of see how we can move forward with it.
Any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. Also, let's give him a round of applause for his first piece of legislation. And seeing no more questions, the legislation is referred to the Student Life Committee. Continuing on the call of new legislation.
SBL 11564, introduced by Senator Sellers and Bean, a recommendation to enhance the transfer student experience by expanding the end of orientation survey to all orientation participants via email.
Senator Sellers and Bean, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hey y'all, so what this is it's asking the university to expand the end of orientation survey that transfer students are given to also be in their emails, because what happens is at the orientation, it starts at 7 a.m. and if students are, and it ends at 5 o'clock. And if students have already been advised for their courses, they're not going to stay for the whole day. So that also means that they are not able to give their feedback on how the orientation session went. So what this does is it would provide an email version of that survey so everyone can give their feedback, because that's the best way to get a general feel of how the transfer students are feeling. And do you have anything to add, Senator Bean?
Hello. It's just incredibly important to help shape the experience and help aid in the improvement of transfer students, because they are students here and their experience matters just as much as anyone else's.
And with that, I yield to questions. We yield to questions.
The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Senator Kay.
Yes, we've had extensive conversations with Jennifer Azu. I apologize for my pronunciation of her name. She's in the transfer orientation department. We had a good meeting with her. We've also talked to Bill Brown, the department of, he's the coordinator of transfer advising. So we've talked to a lot of people. This has been months of work trying to get this one piece done. So we've done our research for sure, and this seems like a good way to get that done.
And point of information, a conversation was also had with the director of New Store Orientation, Allison Leach Hughes. So, any other questions for the senators? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Academics Committee. Continuing on the call, the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now on the call of the uncontested calendar. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11555, introduced by Senator Calder, a recommendation to name the press box at Founders Park the Tommy Moody Press Box.
Senator Calder, you're recognized to speak on the legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like I said, this bill is on the uncontested calendar. Very easy bill. Like I said, athletics is also behind this, and of course, athletic director Ray Tanner is very interested in also doing this and looking into it. I just wanted to make sure that student government is also behind this as well. With that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, we'll now move to a vote on the legislation. Since this was on the uncontested calendar, this shall be a voice vote. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on the call, the uncontested calendar, Senator Kay. Senator Hensley, or Chairman Hensley, excuse me. There's been a motion to omnibus SBL 11557, 11558, and 11559. Is there a second? All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is omnibus. Point of information, that means when the legislation is voted on, it will be voted on as one. So all three pieces will be voted on in one single vote. Is there any other motions before we continue? Continuing on the call of the uncontested calendar, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11557, introduced by Senator Rangavajula, a recommendation to implement appropriate labels encouraging energy conservation in laboratory settings.
Senator Rangavajula, you are recognized to speak on the legislation. Chairman Hensley, you're recognized to give a report in his place.
So this is, I guess now, omnibus legislation. It was spoken on last week, but basically the three parts are, the first part is just a general, in SPL 11559, just a general recommendation to keep the university mindful of its environmental impact because of laboratories. Second part in SBL 1557 is just to include labeling near laboratory equipment that has an environmental impact, just to keep students conscious of the environmental impact they have while working in their laboratories. And the third part, 11558, is to implement appropriate recycling facilities in laboratory settings. A lot of the products that are used in laboratories are recyclable, but the facilities aren't all necessarily always there. So those are the three pieces together. I yield to questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, we shall now move to a vote on SBL 11557, introduced by Senator Ron Gavajula, a recommendation to implement appropriate labels encouraging energy conservation in laboratory settings. We shall also move to a vote on SBL 11558, introduced by Senator Ron Gavajula, recommendation to implement appropriate recycling facilities in laboratory settings. And we also shall move to a vote on SBL 11559, introduced by Senator Ron Gavajula, a recommendation to promote laboratory accountability for environmental impact. Seeing as all pieces of these legislation were on the uncontested calendar, this shall be a voice vote unless offered by division. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. All three pieces of legislation are hereby adopted. Continuing on the call, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11560, introduced by Senator Rangavajula and LaPinta, a recommendation to facilitate access to green certification process during student organization finance requests.
Senator Rangavajula and LaPinta, you guys are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hi guys. So this was just the piece that wasn't omnibus. This was a little bit different. We worked with the finance committee on this. So just kind of going over what we did last week. We met with the finance committee and talked to them about potentially providing a link for everybody who is requesting finances for any organizations they're a part of, to just like, it says, do you want to green certify? Here's the link to green certify. There's the form that you have to fill out. That's all that this does. And with that, I yield the questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Chairman Durham, you're recognized.
No. Yes, this is just a recommendation. We're in the process of just slowly trying to introduce this to people because, to be quite frank, nobody really knows that much about green certification except for the green certification team themselves. So that's kind of what this is to start from where the money comes from, basically. It's like, okay, so these organizations need to get money to fund their organizations, so here's like an option for them. It's just kind of introducing them to the topic.
Any other questions? Chairman Hamilton?
It's just a form that they fill out. It's like, it says, here's the form, basically, for green certification, if you wish to green certify.
Chairman Hensley.
Yeah, you just fill it out if you want.
Any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, we shall now move to a vote on this piece of legislation. Since this was on the uncontested calendar, this shall be a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is hereby adopted. Continuing on the call, the uncontested calendar.
SBL 11561, introduced by Senator Harvey, a bill to amend Section 4220 of the Student Government Codes to institute the 115th Student Senate reapportionment calculations for the 2024-2025 election term.
Is there any senator wishing to speak on this legislation from powers and responsibilities? Chairman Hamilton, you are recognized.
We talked about this last week, but this piece of legislation goes through Senate every single year. All it deals with is the number of Senate seats that are basically proportioned to each college based off their population and the number of seats that are codified for the original number. With that, I yield to questions.
And point of information, the only change in the numbers from last year is College of Engineering does gain a seat due to its full-time student enrollment count. And of course, there's a formula associated with that, but a lot of it has to deal with their enrollment count. And this College of Pharmacy loses a seat. Senator LaPinta.
No. Wait, current.
Point of information, this is for the upcoming election cycle, so the election cycle that's taking place right now. So that means, as of current, the College of Engineering will have 5 seats and will elect 5 senators if there is that many that filed or above. And the College of Pharmacy will only elect 2 seats instead of 3 if there is that many senators that are that are filed or above. Any other questions for the chairwoman? Senator Miller. Point of information, at the candidates meetings in January and December, they did have rough calculations and was pending Senate approval for those rough calculations. So they technically already advertised that it was pending approval. So those calculations have been out for a while. Any other questions? Senator Miller. So, point of information, what that rule stipulation is talking about is if Senate, so Senate does not do the calculations itself. The Elections Commission handles all of the mathematical formulation of the seats, and that is essentially saying that if the Elections Commission doesn't go ahead and advertise the calculations, for example, if we were just pass a random bill without it being advertised, those seats, then it technically would be against the rules. But since the Elections Commission has already advertised to the candidates that went to the interest meetings, plus the mandatory meeting as well, that these were the rough calculations, technically we're just following procedure, and that doesn't necessarily break that stipulation. Senator Miller. Mm. Point of information, I did go to both interest meetings, and it was pending Senate approval both times I went. I did not sit in the mandatory one, but I can meet with the Elections Commissioner after this and figure this out, if that's okay. With that being said, is there a motion to table this piece of legislation for 1 week?
Move.
Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. All right, thank you so much. Continuing on the call of the uncontested calendar, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we're now on the call of the contested calendar. The clerk will now read. Hearing none, we're now in line for a period of open discussion. Does any senator wish to bring a matter of attention to the body? Seeing none, we're now in line for a period of announcements. Are there any announcements from the floor? Senator Sellers, you are recognized.
Hey, y'all. So I just wanted to follow up on what Senator LaPinta was talking about earlier. So I am trying to find 2 senators that are running again for the next term that would be willing to be members of the Transfer Student Advisory Council. You don't have to be a transfer student. Basically, what this council is it's 12 offices across the campus get together every so often and do their best to advocate for the needs of transfer students. And so it's a really cool thing. And so this Bill Brown, who is the person that I've been talking about, that I talked about in my legislation, he is a member of this. And he really wants to, we've had a lot of conversations, and he really wants for Senate to have permanent relations with this council. And it would make a lot of sense because students, we are the students ourselves, and these are the people that advocate for us. And so it would make sense for both of us to be together and collaborating. So I will not be able to be a member of this because I'm graduating in May, but I really want to do my best to introduce two senators to him and start getting relations ready for next semester. So if that's something you're interested in, please let me know. I'll also send an announcement in the GroupMe, but just let me know if that interests you. Thank you.
Any question? Do you yield to questions, sir? Yes. Any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. Are there any other announcements from the floor? Seeing none, as always, I have an announcement, but I'm going to keep it very brief. The legislative workshop tomorrow, please come. We'd love to have you. It is free food. It will be fun. It is like also Senate bonding as well, so it's not going to be like I'm going to stand up here and give you a presentation. It's going to be very collaborative. You know, we'll probably have music, and it'll be fun. It'll be like a little nice hour-long break from the seriousness of election season and the seriousness of session. But that being said, you don't have to submit anything if you aren't able to come. If you want to tell us like why you can't come, you totally can. This is just a fun opportunity for you guys, but it also counts as a forgiveness event for attendance. And I know, according to today's attendance, some emails are being sent by the Speaker Pro Tempore, so if you are the recipient of those emails, I would highly encourage you, actually highly, strongly push you and encourage you to go tomorrow, because if not, we will have to vote on your removal in the following week, and that's not fun. So please, please, please keep up with that. Also, if you tabled today for the Table of Love, that's also a forgiveness event. I have those names, so you don't have to come up and tell me who did. So super, super proud of everyone that worked on that initiative. I think it was a great opportunity for us to advertise Senate, but also just to advertise student government and just the amazing Valentine's Day that is today. I also would like to thank everyone that had a hand in this Pie a Senator and the Menstrual Product Drive. Definitely one of our most successful drives in my term, in my years of student government, so I applaud the work that that committee has done. And if you can go to the packing party, please do. I know we'll need as much help as we could get because there's a lot of products, and that's an amazing thing. And with that, I will say the last session is coming up on March 13th. It is the Wednesday before inauguration. In that session, it's usually super ceremonial, but still very, very important that you show up. We also might be cooking up a surprise for the last session, and if you don't go, then you won't get to witness a possible surprise. So that's not fun. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be really exciting. At the last session, just to kind of give you a brief, since we have a lot of new senators, usually we give 4 resolutions out to the outgoing 4 executive officers. We usually have like a sine die piece of legislation, which if you've worked at the State House or in the national politics, that's actually something that they also do, is when a session term comes to an end, they usually pass a sine die resolution saying that the term is sine die, and the 115th obviously is sealed, and the next session, or excuse me, the next term will start in the next following legislative period. So that's super exciting. And I also imagine we'll have obviously some advocacy pieces on the calendar as well. So please plan to be there. I know it's tempting because it's the last session of your term, but again, you were elected to be here and to sit in these seats and to vote and to raise your placard and to work on your projects. So please, please be here. I know I would appreciate it. I also will be giving out some very fun awards. So you don't want to miss it. And with that, I will yield to questions. Are there any questions for me? Seeing none, are there any other announcements on the floor? With no further announcements, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. The Senate will now stand adjourned until Wednesday, February 21st, 2024. And just a reminder, the executive candidate debate does start at 7:30. So if you are staying for that, keep that in mind.
Oh. If you have not given me your placard yet, please come up and do so. Thank you.
started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this year's Executive Candidate Debate. My name is Alex Wimmenthal, one of the 2024 Deputy Elections Commissioner for Student Government. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We are very excited to be able to host this debate so that the candidates can share more about their visions for leading the student body. Tonight's debate will showcase the 4 executive offices together to ask general questions about student government. The purpose of this is to have an open discussion about how student government functions as an institution. Following the panel, each executive candidate will be on stage separately to present an overview of their platforms and respond to questions. Candidate for treasurer will be up first, followed by the candidate for Speaker of the Student Senate, then candidate for the Student Body Vice President, and finally the candidate for Student Body President. Before we get started, I'd like to encourage each candidate to remain respectful while the other candidates are speaking, whether on stage or in the audience. Debates like these allow us to engage in discourse about the future of our wonderful university, and the student body and I are looking forward to hearing all of your ideas. To all of the students watching tonight, I want to thank you for being engaged in our university community. I also want to ask that each of you take what you hear tonight and share it with your fellow Gamecocks that are not here tonight. Once elected, the decision these candidates make will have profound impacts on our student body, and it's important that as students, we hold each other accountable and keep one another informed. I would also like to thank Student Gamecock Television and the Daily Gamecock for live streaming the debate tonight so that even more students can access this great event. With all of that said, I would like to introduce our debate moderators. Our debate tonight will be moderated by Editor-in-Chief of the Daily Gamecock, Kate Robbins, SGTV Station Manager, Nicholas Hill, and myself. I'm so thankful for Kate and Nick for being moderators and their willingness to dedicate their time with us tonight. With that, I will run through the rules of the night. Here's how tonight's debate will work. There are roughly 55 minutes total for candidates to answer questions. We will begin the debate with all the candidates on stage together. Candidates will have 15 minutes to answer 4 questions. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question. After a candidate has answered a question, the other candidates may raise their hand to have the opportunity for a 30-second response. The original candidate may raise their hand to use an additional 15 seconds to continue the discussion if needed. Following the conclusion of the panel, we will transition to individual questioning. First will be a discussion with the treasurer, which will last 10 minutes. Next will be a discussion with the candidate for the Speaker of the Student Senate, which will last 10 minutes. This is followed by the candidate for the Student Body Vice President discussion, which will last 10 minutes. And then finally, the candidate for Student Body President discussion, which will last 10 minutes. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to provide an opening statement. They will then answer roughly 5 questions. Let's proceed with the panel. Can all candidates please make their way up to the stage?
Thank you, Alex. On stage, we have the Student Body President candidate, Patton Byers, Student Body Vice President candidate, Courtney Tax, Speaker of the Student Senate candidate, Mara Hamilton, and lastly, Student Body Treasurer candidate, Jacob Vaught. Could each candidate briefly introduce themselves? Note, this is not an opening statement, but just a chance to identify who you are and what position you are running for. Mr. Byers, will start with you and then go to the right.
Sounds good. I'm Patton Byers, and I'm running to be your next Student Body President.
I'm Courtney Tax. I'm running for Student Body Vice President.
I'm Maura Hamilton. I'm the candidate for Speaker of the Student Senate.
I'm Jacob Vaught. I'm candidate for Student Body Treasurer.
Thank you. We will now begin with some questions. Remember, you will have a minute to answer each of these. Answers should be based on your individual perspectives. If you wish to respond to another candidate's answer, please raise your hand. All right, for the first question, each of you are running unopposed for the 2024 election, which is unprecedented. Why do you think this is a lower number of students who want to run for executive positions? How will you address this concern if you are elected? Mr. Byers, we'll start with you and then move to the right.
Well, number one, I got to get elected. You know, there's still an election to be had. There's still votes that have not been cast. Look, I'm looking forward to February 20th, February 21st for the voting days, starting as soon as at 9 a.m. Shameless plug. You can vote as early as 9 a.m. and as late until February 21st till 5 p.m. So I'm not going to worry about what's happening until after the election, until after the election. I think mainly, though, it's a testament to who each of the candidates are on stage that people have really rallied around what we want to run on. People understand that Wi-Fi is an issue on our campus. People understand that people are not safe on our campus, and also they understand that the student experience is not the best for the past 4 year. So I think that's why people are rallying around our campaigns.
Kind of going off of what Patton said, I think it really speaks to the testament of the positive environment that we've built in student government over the past year. A large majority of our campaign team are current student government members, but I do think that this is an issue that we will work on this coming year. Part of this is still reaching out to student organizations even after, if we are elected. We want to reach out to student organizations and show them the opportunities that we have within student government.
Yeah, so echoing off of what obviously everybody has said, I definitely think that this is something that we are going to focus on post-election. This is actually something that I'm very passionate about, especially because Senate is a direct representation of the student body. You know, that's one of the parts of Senate that I love the most, is that all of those senators represent certain colleges and certain majors. I know that if elected as student speaker, I would like to make sure that there's increased outreach, so that students are not only educated about what student government is doing, but also just educated on how they can get involved. You know, you can join student government as an elected official, but there's many other paths to joining student government, and I hope that students who are not running an election will choose to join in the future.
I mean, going back off of what they just said, again, all of us are very qualified candidates. It's probably why some people didn't run against us. But another major issue is a lot of students don't even know what student government is or what it does. And going off what they all said is, I think, something we need to start doing more outreach and getting more people interested in joining student government.
Not necessarily applying to you, Jacob, so don't fret. I do want to mention, though, I think it's important. I know I've talked to Courtney about this as well, potentially, if all elected. I really would love to see it codified in student government that all elected officials for executive office have to go speak to organizations after you're elected. You shouldn't be hearing from just student government members. It should be just the beginning of hearing from all students.
I agree with that.
Student participation in student government elections has always been a concern, especially since all of you are running unopposed. Do you think students will want to participate this year? Why or why not? And how do you plan on engaging with them? Ms. Tax, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to the right.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is we need to give them something to vote for. We need to find something that is a common issue amongst all students. A lot of these issues that all students face are also things I face. And so that is my mission, to fix that for the student body. Even if we were opposed, unopposed, no matter what, we are still making it a priority to go and visit student organizations and make sure that we are listening to what they need done as well. This campaign is not just our campaign, it's the students' campaign. We want to make sure that every issue on campus is heard so that we can resolve it.
Yeah, so I think definitely moving forward with the rest of the campaign, I'm personally very excited to be able to begin cabling and meeting just so many students on campus and having these exploratory conversations about issues on campus. I think that it's really important for students to be able to connect with their candidates. And although there may be a lesser number of candidates than there has been in the past, I know that I'm working diligently to make sure that students know what I'm running for. I want to make sure that students that meet me, if I go to their organization or if I'm just talking to them on the street, know that I'm somebody that's going to work for them. I'm there to serve them, and I want to make sure that I'm working on issues that they're passionate about as well.
Yeah, so a lot of students would definitely not want to vote for us or not vote because they think that it's not going to matter. But one of the things I want students to know is that even if the executives are basically kind of picked at this point, the senators, they can still choose who gets to represent them and pass all the legislation that's actually going to affect them. Like, executives have a lot of ability to make change, but Senate really is the branch does a lot of the work that gets things done.
I would just like to say, I've mentioned this earlier, but I definitely would like to second that. Senate is, you know, it's diverse in just its codified nature. It's there to represent the wide array of majors and colleges and students that we have here. And I really do encourage everyone to get involved, and even if they're not running as an elected official, they can join as a vacant seat later.
For me, I believe, once again, as I said before, the election hasn't even started. So let's focus on getting votes for ourselves and for every other senator, like you brought up as well. We still have a few thousand people to vote. So I want to make sure we focus on that, and we cannot take anything for granted. I know I've been taking it one day at a time. I know my running mate Courtney and I have as well. And that's important, but also I look at it as, look, if we're unopposed and maybe majority of people will probably vote for each of us, I view it as a way of showing administration X many students care about the issues that are affecting them, because they understand that the issues that they're voting for are not just personal to them, but they're personal to each and every one of us.
Thank you. Alrighty. One other major concern is that the student body is not aware of how student government operates. How has the student government lacked in informing what should change? We're going to start from Ms. Hamilton, and we'll move on to the right.
Yeah, I know obviously this is taking a positive spin on this question, but I think that this year we've done a lot of great developments on this front. I mean, speaking from my personal experience as a senator, we worked on our Food for Thought initiative where we gave out free chicken minis to the student body and asked about what their issues were on campus and what they were passionate about. We got great results from that, and we've still been tabulating that data. I think that's something that, if elected, I would really like to work on. You know, I think tabling is a great way to get an outreach to students, to get people involved, and to talk to them about issues. Something that I'm looking to fix, though, is I want to make sure that when we're tabling, it's focused on specific issues. I think sometimes when you look at a student and say, what do you want fixed about Carolina? Like, they could have a million things in their mind. How are they going to pick just one? I want to make sure that when we're reaching out to students, we're saying, what would you like fixed about housing on campus? What do you want fixed about safety on campus? So we can get good, effective feedback.
Yeah, student government, a lot of students don't understand student government, and I agree with that. And although student government has done a lot to try to help with this, we're really just still trying to recover from COVID. It's just been a terrible after that time frame. It was a lot of students lost a lot of previous knowledge. One of the issues is that we still just don't have enough people in student government to fill a lot of spots and actually help promote it. We just have vacant seats all the time, and I think that's something that student government could maybe start promoting this a little more. But the current execs have done the best they could with what they were given.
I agree very much with that last statement. The current execs have done the best with what they have. For example, we just had Uber discounts this past week, and we've done one last semester with 1 weekend, and then this current semester one this past weekend. And students are, one, seeing that Uber discounts are available, but are using because they understand it. So I counter to the point that students don't know what student government's doing. If anything, I think they know more than ever, frankly. Just being fortunate enough to run Emmy and Aubriana's campaign, people are listening to what they have to say. There was about 40,000 views on one of their videos they posted just a couple months ago. So students are listening, they care, and they want to hear. The question is how do we reach them? For me, I agree with more. You got to be more specific when you're tabling, number one. But number two, you also need to focus on things that are affecting them. In student government, I think I applaud the current exec, specifically current student body president, Emmy Thompson. She's focused on issues that, one, are affecting students, but two, have gotten them done.
I just also wanted to echo what Mr. Byers said. I think that tangible solutions is something that's going to be huge in this upcoming year. I can speak on behalf of all of us when I say that's something that we are all really passionate about. I think it says a lot when students can point at something and say, this came from student government.
So I wanted to agree with everyone. I think the current execs have done a great job of increasing the communication with students, and I want to do more. I want to increase that communication even more. I think one thing that we've lacked in is not telling the current student body about past initiatives we have, and that's something I really want to implement, is making sure that every student knows about past initiatives. One example was this past football season. I was in Williams-Brice, and someone's phone was dead, and they were like, oh, my phone's dead, what am I going to do? I'm like, we have phone chargers. And then that same day, we were walking home, and there was a girl crying on the street. And we were like, what's going on? She's like, I just want to get home, but I don't know how. I'm like, well, we have shuttle services. So I want to make sure I'm looking at past initiatives that we haven't done a great job of letting the students know that we have, while also building to make sure that students know about our new initiatives.
What do you believe to be the mission of student government? Do you think the organization is fulfilling that mission? Why or why not? Mr. Vaught, we will start with you and then go to the right.
Well, I think the mission of student government is to actually represent all the students on campus and look out for their best interests at heart. I think student government so far has done an excellent job of representing. We've got tons of legislation passed. We've been working on increasing the student activity fund to help get more on-campus events, which I think is something the students would care about.
I agree. I think we've done a great job. We are representing the student body to the best that we can. However, I do believe we also, while we're a governing organization, we also are a service organization. So that's one thing that I think we can do a little bit better on. And one thing I want to do, if elected student body president, I have 2 positions in my cabinet that are discretionary that I can kind of, sort of, to an extent, create. And one of them I want to do is create a director of philanthropy. We should have service in our organization, one, internal, but also external. Because if you're not serving your community, how can you really see what's going on in the community?
I would agree with that. I think the main mission of student government is to be servant leaders on campus. And I cannot emphasize enough that the current execs have been models of this. And I really want to follow in their footsteps by not necessarily feeling that they are above all students, but being one of the students. I am an equal to everyone. And my job here is to listen to what you have to say and what problems you see on campus. And my job is to fix that.
Yeah, so Courtney took the words clean out of my mouth. I was going to say servant leadership as well. I think speaking from the Senate side, as I've mentioned multiple times already, the senators are there to represent their constituents. And while I think it is amazing when Senate people come in with their own ideas and their agendas and initiatives that they would like to work on, I want to make sure that if elected in Senate, I'm pushing that the students need to make sure that they're passing legislation that's indicative of their constituents. They need to make sure that they're reaching out to the colleges that they represent, to the majors that they represent, and seeing what people care about, what they're passionate about, so they can make sure that the things that we're doing in student government actually apply to the student body.
Thank you, candidates. Those are all the questions we have for you. Thank you for being here. We will now move to a period of individual questioning. Mr. Vaught, you can remain on stage.
Yeah, if you would just move to the middle of the stage. Yay.
Our first position of the night is student body treasurer. For this position, there is only one candidate, Jacob Vaught. You will have 60 seconds for your opening statement. Mr. Vaught, you may proceed. You have 1 minute.
Well, I'm Jacob Vaught. I'm a junior in the engineering college, and I'm running for student body treasurer. Some of my campaign initiatives are to reach out to more student orgs and help ease the transition to the new financial codes that I helped develop over the last few months for the ad hoc committee, and also to help try to introduce some more engineering aspects into the program or into the financial system to help reduce the strain on it, so you can allow people to do more outreach instead of spending more time doing paperwork.
Thank you. We'll now begin with some questions. Remember, you have a minute to answer each of these. What is your top priority if elected? Please be specific and outline actionable steps you will take to achieve that goal.
Well, my top priority is to transition from the current codes into the new codes. I plan to work heavily with the finance committee, work along with student senate. So we're going to make sure that we pick a bunch of good comptrollers. That's one of the first things, because we had a few issues with that over the semester, because I was in the finance committee the whole time. And you'd have a few issues with the finance committee receiving paperwork that was incorrect, which really bogged down the system. After that's worked out, which I foresee taking maybe a few weeks, then we'd work into actually reaching out to student orgs. I'd like to have specific treasure workshops for individual colleges. As a senator, I've worked with the CEC, the engineering college, to work on this and actually have miniature kind of treasure workshops there. But this is something that I'd like to introduce in all colleges on campus.
Over the years, the question of whether or not the position of student body treasurer has become an important topic of discussion. Why do you think the position is necessary for student government to function?
Oh, I think the position is very important to for the student government, because the finance committee can't really handle the strain of having 100 requests come in all at once. Oftentimes, the finance committee would have 50 requests in a week to come review, and having all that, if I can't imagine how hard it would have been for the finance committee to manage that, or even a cabinet member for the president to manage that kind of workload without getting paid at all. That's something that I just can't see being a fair thing. So that's kind of why I think treasurer is very important, to manage that kind of stuff and do all the treasurer workshops.
Where do you think that student government let the student body down and how it allocated funds this year? What went wrong in the process?
I don't think student government has really let student orgs down on how they allocate funds. I think that this is something that is just, if you look at the report that will be coming out in a few weeks, that from the ad hoc committee, if you look at it, it's really just a correlation of just increased inflation and increased number of student orgs. And this issue is just going to keep growing, and we just simply have a lack of funds. The only way student government could fix the problem is by severely cutting the number of events that happen on campus, and we don't think that's something that's fair to do. Next year, I'm going to help, or if I win treasurer, I'm going to try to help organizations find ways to do things cheaper, have more sustainable events, but in the current system, there was not much we could have done, and we did the best we could with what we had.
You mentioned this just now, but can you go into more specifics about what is your plan to prevent student government from running out of funds, and how will you make sure student organizations receive the money that they need?
Right. So to prevent the student government from running out of funds, we're trying to first off just increase the amount of funds we have available to spend. That's the number one thing we're trying to do. But in the interim, while we're trying to get that pushed through, again, that takes time, as all legislative things do, we're going to try to we're trying to push orgs to do more on-campus events, more events that cost cheaper, and we're also going to help them find other sources of funding. That's something I haven't ironed out, the other sources of funding, but the rest of it should be pretty simple to implement to get them to put more events on campus and use cheaper locations and find better alternatives.
In light of the new changes to the finance codes, how do you plan to support student organization leaders and make sure that they are aware of the changes next semester?
Well, this is actually something that I'm very passionate about. I plan to develop the treasurer's manual, make that a lot more comprehensive. I actually flesh that out a lot and send it out to all student orgs. We also plan to make anyone who makes a request through student org has to be the one that attended the workshop. It can't just be anyone from the workshop, so that makes sure that the people who show up are the ones who actually are going to make the request. I'm also going to be having more treasurer workshops in different locations to allow for more students to be able, more student orgs to actually understand how the codes work. And I'm going to be willing to, well, the treasurer does as well, but I'm also going to be willing to have one-on-one conversations with student orgs who have any questions at all, and I'm going to have set office hours as well.
Thank you, Mr. Vaught. Those are all the questions we have for you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nick. Next, we will be hearing from our speaker, the Student Senate candidate, Mara Hamilton. Please come forward to the stage.
That was like an absurd number of obstacles to have to conquer.
Ms. Hamilton, you may now proceed with your opening statement. Remember, you will have 1 minute.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Maura Hamilton. I am a sophomore in the College of Nursing. I'm also a member of our South Carolina Honors College. I was elected to serve the College of Nursing in the 115th Senate, and since then I've had extensive experience serving on various committees. I've been on sustainability, powers and responsibilities, rules, judiciary, and our finance committee. I was also part of our ad hoc committee on finance reform. Most recently, I was elected to serve as the judiciary chairwoman, which has been an amazing experience so far. Only been a week, but I've loved it. I'm running on a platform that is split up into 4 parts. It's for you, for the Gamecock Citizen, for the Gamecock Campus, and for the Gamecock Classroom. Some of the things I'm focusing on include implementing mental health days into our calendar, working on the codes to make sure that they're more clear and more concise, and also making sure that we have an increased relationship with our faculty senate.
Thank you, and we will now proceed with some questions. Current Speaker Cameron Eubanks gave a presentation at the end of January that discussed the proposal for a new student union. What do you think about the proposal, and if you are elective, do you have any plans to continue with those discussions?
Yeah, first off, I would just like to go ahead and say that at the end of the day, I am not the Board of Trustees, and I will not be the one building that building. So as much as I can speak on my opinion about that, I will not be making the final decision on that. I think that we've done a great amount of work on that through our time on the ad hoc committee. I was really honored to be able to be a part of that, and I learned a lot more about the way that our university works on the internal. I am happy to continue collaboration on this project. I think that this is something that a lot of our faculty is passionate about as well, and I want to make sure that I'm fostering those types of relationships.
How do you plan to make sure student senators reach out more to their constituents and understand students' concerns?
Yeah, so I think that this is definitely going to be a multifaceted process. The first thing is going to be making sure that we have an emphasis on organizational outreach. That has been an amazing experience for me thus far campaigning, getting to meet all these people. And I think that's a great way to meet students who are really passionate. When you meet students at organization, these are people that do things beyond the classroom. You know, they're joining whether it's Greek life or an engineering fraternity, anything like that. They're really passionate about doing something that contributes to our campus. I want to make sure that senators are reaching out to these organizations that are specific to their colleges so they can find these passionate students and, number one, educate them on student government, and number two, hear their opinion on important issues. The second part of this, I think, is going to be focusing on the fact that senators are also developing, writing, and passing effective legislation. They need to make sure that what they're doing is actually in the best interest of the student body.
In the past, the Student Senate has struggled to fill seats. How do you plan to get students interested in getting involved with student government?
Yeah, so I basically just mentioned it, but I think organizational outreach is going to be huge. That is the best place to find students that are passionate and want to do things on campus. I want to make sure that students are very well educated in what student government is. I also think that another thing that's going to be important in this is working on passing tangible legislation that creates real change on campus. I think students sometimes struggle with the thought of student government because they're unclear on what exactly it does. But as I mentioned previous, when all the candidates were up here, having those things where a student can point at it and say, I know that Senate did this for me. I know that the president's office did this to me, whoever it may be, they're going to have more faith in the body. They're going to have more belief in the fact that we do have power to make change on campus, and they're going to want to be a part of that.
You mentioned in your interview that you would like to reform the code so that they are more easily understood by the student body. What about them is confusing, and how would you go about changing them?
So if you know me, I love the codes. I love the codes maybe a little too much, and I spend a lot of time in them. They are very repetitive, and there's some language in there that's really hard to understand. The codes are the governing rules of our organization, and given that our organization is here to serve the students, I want to make sure that the codes are something that the average student could read. Especially this is important when it comes to financial reform. I only once came up with this idea when I served on this ad hoc committee, and I saw the way that looking at every single word on every single page of those codes made real change. If elected, I'd like to form another ad hoc committee focused on code reform, and by the end, I would like to make sure that the codes are just a clearly polished and easy to read piece of legislation that the entire student body can look at.
The Speaker of the Student Senate has to find a balance between advocating for students while also advocating for senators. How will you ensure that you are representing all parties, even when you may be working with other senators who you disagree with?
Yeah, I think this all goes back to putting an emphasis on the fact that senators are elected to represent their constituents. I need to make sure that the senators in the Senate, if elected, are working towards what is best for the student body. Although they might have opinions that I personally disagree with, at the end of the day, they are the representatives of the student body. If they pass a piece of legislation, that means that they believe as the representatives that's what the student body wants. As soon as that legislation is passed, I mean, it is my job to be its biggest cheerleader, and I will defend it forever.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Those are all the questions we have for you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kate. Now we'll be hearing from the candidate for Student Body Vice President, Courtney Tax. Ms. Tax, please proceed with your opening statement. Remember, you will have 1 minute.
Hey y'all, my name's Courtney Tax. I'm currently a sophomore. I'm a political science and public health major. And some things that I'm involved in on campus, I am an Alpha Delta Pi. I'm the current chief of staff to the Speaker of the Student Senate, and I am also in the Phi Delta Phi pre-law fraternity. One thing that is super interesting about me is I'm actually from Lexington, South Carolina, but that's not where I'm originally from. I'm a military kid, so I moved here from a small town called Chugiak, Alaska, my sophomore year of high school, and choosing USC has been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Being so involved in campus, I've really been able to see the issues that are surrounding other students, and as if I'm elected vice president, I want to make sure that I'm communicating those issues, especially following our 3 pillars: student experience, infrastructure, and safety.
Thank you. Now we'll begin with some questions. In this position, you oversee the student government's communications team. How do you plan to effectively communicate with students across campus, including those who have been previously disengaged with student government?
So I think one of the big things is actually going in person. We focus so much on using social media, but I think we need to start turning to other outlets. One of these outlets that I really want to implement is actually visiting U101 classes at the beginning of freshman's first semester, so they're able to see firsthand what we're doing and what we can offer them, because it's very hard to have people connect with your social media. You can only do so much outreach using that, but going in person and showing them that you are a real person can help connect you with the student body.
In this position, it is also important to focus on getting the student body to come to student government events. How do you plan on motivating them to come to student governments?
This is something that I've been very passionate about, especially with my position as chief of staff. This past year, we've changed the attendance policy, and one of those things is actually incentivizing senators coming to events, which will allow them to be marked, an unexcused absence to be marked as excused. I really want to incentivize these events to student government, but this starts with freshman council. I really want to revitalize freshman council to increase the retention rate into the next year, because the more people that you retain the following year, the more people that they're going to bring in from other organizations on campus.
In your interview, you mentioned that you want to show administration and stakeholders data on issues that students are facing. How do you plan to get this data, and why do you think this is important?
One of the best data entries that we have is actually food for thought. This was run through Senate this past year. We incentivized using giving students 1,500 chicken minis in response to their issues on campus. We have an entire Google sheet of hundreds of responses of issues that students find relevant on campus. The other one is I work as a student life ambassador here on campus, specifically in the Leadership and Service Center. We have a tracker that shows how many students are having an issue with on-campus housing, off-campus housing, and I really want to bring that to administration to show them how many people applied to live on campus and how many people were denied and how big of an issue that is.
Mental health continues to be at the forefront of students' minds. For instance, other universities have added mental health days to give students the time to decompress. Do you have any plans or initiatives that could help advocate for something similar? If not, what is your plan to address mental health concerns on campus?
Absolutely. That is 100% a big issue that I currently face, and if I face it, I know that hundreds, if not thousands of other students are currently facing this on campus. I know that this has previously been tried to be implemented. There is kind of an issue because in order for students to maintain their scholarships on campus, they have to be in class a certain number of days. One way that we can resolve that is actually including it in the schedule. If we include it into the schedule, that would mean that it wouldn't be implemented or it wouldn't be included into the complete number of days that students need to be on campus, and that's a free day for students to regroup and be better for the next day.
A large role for the vice president is to help support the president. If elected, how will you fulfill this role, even if it means speaking out when you don't agree with the other person?
Yeah, so Pat and I have been chiefs of staff together this past year, and I think we've done a great job of doing that. There are times that we do not agree, and it actually has been so much better for us because it means that we're not going with the first option. We are building on that. We are looking at multiple alternatives, multiple viewpoints to find the best solution for us.
Thank you, Ms. Tax. Those are all the questions we have for you. Thank you for being here.
Finally, running for the position of student body president, we have Patton Byers.
Got a little maze going on over here. Well, you might have been right on that. I'm sorry in advance, I might move a little bit.
Mr. Byers will begin with your opening statement. You have 1 minute.
Well, I'm Patton Byers. I'm born and raised in Lexington, South Carolina, so just 2 exits down the road. I'm a third-generation Gamecock, so I've loved going to South Carolina football, basketball, baseball, softball, women's basketball games for really my entire life. Cried a lot of times watching great football teams, but a lot more bad football teams, unfortunately. I'm involved, of course, in student government. I'm at St. Thomas More Bible study as well on our campus. I'm excited to speak about issues that are not just impersonal to me, but are affecting the student body. So I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you. We will now proceed with some questions. The student body president has had many responsibilities and time commitments, but is primarily tasked with representing the student body and its interests. How will you ensure that you engage and interact with the student body as one of its peers?
All right. Well, you got me fired up. I'm getting up. I'm sorry. Sorry in advance. I think one for me is actually hearing from actual students. You need to actually be going to organizations, and that's why I wanted to be codified, that student body president and every single executive officer should at least go to 2 different organizations every single month. You should be hearing from all different kinds of students, not just the ones in student government, because inherently, once you get elected, you spend 2 weeks speaking to different organizations, and then you get in, and all you hear is from your executive officers, your advisors, administration, student government members. That's not okay. You need to be hearing from all different kinds of students. I applaud the current execs. Student body president Emmy Thompson always tells me you got to be the people's president, and I hope I can do that as well.
The student body president has access to the university administration, board of trustees meetings, and more. How will you use this access to advocate for students concerned to the administration?
Advocate. Absolutely advocate like hell, because it's important and it's affecting students every single day. Wi-Fi is affecting students every single day. And food for thought, 60% of the student body said Wi-Fi was the biggest and most important issue on our campus. With the GR survey, over a third of the students said that they are affected by Wi-Fi every single day. So we need to talk about issues that are pertaining to students every single day. So we're going to talk about issues that are actually affecting students, not necessarily things that are always going on in the outside political world or maybe two streets down at the State House. We're going to talk about issues that are going on in Green Street, Russell House, or wherever it may be.
Top University administration has demonstrated that it will continue to grow the student body amid infrastructure concerns. What is your position on the university's relentless growth?
To be honest, I'm not in favor. I'm not in favor of massive growth, especially ones that we can't sustain. Right now, we aren't sustaining the current growth. It's on average, 2% our growth every single year. I just don't see how it's sustainable right now. We're building up these massive, amazing buildings like Campus Village, and that's good, but what about people who are still living in McBride? What about people who are still living in Coa Hall? And what about students? Just a few weeks ago, I was talking to a student, and he told me, Patton, I was told I could live in 650 as an honor student. And then a few weeks ago, I got an email saying I can't anymore because we've overextended our enrollment. That's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for any student to be told they can have something and not, when they're paying just as much in tuition. So we need to make sure that we're advocating for students that are currently on our campus just as much.
Two of your goals, improving Wi-Fi and housing for upperclassmen, are widespread, complex university issues. Because each of these things have a lot of moving parts, how will you fulfill these campaign promises?
For one, it's having open conversations with all different kinds of students. So I want to make sure that I am a listener as a student body president, not just someone who's always telling you the issues that are affecting me are affecting the student body. Look, these are the issues, of course, I think that are affecting the student body, but look, I'm only hearing from a certain amount of people, and that's the beauty of campaigning. So I want to hear from all different kinds of students, number one. Number two, I want to advocate with administration and faculty. I'm going to create positive relationships with the Vice President of Student Affairs, Rex Tolliver, and with Anna Edwards, or hopefully the new CIO, Mr. Bible. So I'm looking forward to meeting him as well on March 1st. So I want to make sure I have positive relationships with administration, faculty, and I think that's the first step to actually getting widespread change done.
How do you plan to hold yourself and your administration accountable for the promises made during your campaign?
I mean, for one, it's taking after the current student body president. I think she's done an amazing job, Emmy Thompson, with actually showing when you say something, one, you mean it. When you mean it, you get it done. And she's really led by example to the entire student government. And I think that's why we have such a great culture in student government right now. And look, if you told people that 3 years ago today, they would tell you, Patton, you're lying. But that's actually what we have here. So I want to make sure that we create, one, a positive culture internally, but also we're advocating. And I think a large part of that is getting to know everyone in student government, but also making sure you lead by example and showing them how to get things done at the administration level.
Thank you. Those are all the questions we have for you.
Of course.
Alrighty, that concludes our debate period for the candidates, as well as our debate program for the night. I would like to again thank our moderators, Nicholas Hill and Kate Robbins, for coming out to helping moderate this year's debate. I would like to also thank all of the candidates for participating today. This has been a great debate. And of course, thank you for all of you for coming and showing your support for our candidates tonight. I would like to remind all students to vote on Self-Service Carolina at sc.edu/elections. Polls will open at 9 a.m. on February 20th and close at 5 p.m. on February 21st. And results will be announced on February 22nd at 5:30 p.m. on Green Street. If you have any questions at all regarding the elections, you are welcome to contact the Elections Commission at saec@mailbox.sc.edu. And thank you all again, and I hope you have a great night. And let's all give a round of applause to all of the candidates. Thank you.